Famine, plague, warfare, and exposure. Life in the medieval era was rough, and your chances of dying from unnatural causes was high. A lot of cultures had different ways of dealing with death, but for one town in Czechia, there was a truly unique way to express this experience. Hi everyone, this is Travels with an Archaeologist. I'm the Archaeologist, now let's get into the travels. Welcome to Kutna Hora. Don't let its small size fool you. This historic town on the outskirts of Prague used to be pretty important. It was once the second largest city in Bohemia thanks to its silver mines. It's also known for one very special building right on the edge of the modern town. This is the Sedlec Ossuary. It was founded in 1142 and Kutna Hora was built around it. And what makes this place so special? Well, this church doesn't just have a graveyard, it has decoration with human bones. So it goes without saying, if you haven't figured this out already, if you're a bit squeamish around human bodies, don't watch this video. By the way, I'm quite serious. All the bones shown in this video are real, and they will be shown throughout the first half. I am an archaeologist after all, this was bound to happen eventually. So, if you are squeamish about this, hit the back button and watch one of my other videos. That being said, everyone laid to rest here was aware of what their bones would be used for, and it even became something of a trend to donate yourself to this ossuary. So, if it's not the bones thing that's turning you off but their display, keep in mind that this ossuary is done with respectful intent, and this video is meant for educational purposes. So, let's start with the Sedlec ossuary itself. Where did it come from, and what can these bones tell us about who these people were? Firstly, this ossuary is part of an older Cistercian monastery. It was founded in 1142 outside the town of Kutna Hora, the site of huge silver mines. And for a while, this was a fairly standard monastery until a monk named Henry returned from the Kingdom of Jerusalem. In 1278, Henry had brought back something very special from the hill of Golgotha: dirt. He spread it around the monastery's cemetery, which became a local landmark. Everyone was lining up to get buried here. This little hill simply didn't have enough room to bury everyone, especially as more bodies returned home from the Crusades, and they continued to pile high during the Black Death. As the bodies began piling high, this led to the construction of this church in the 15th century. The church above is actually a fairly simple no-bones affair, pun very much intended. For the longest time, these bones sat in pyramids in the basement ossuary, until 1870 when a local woodcarver named Francesc Rint was tasked with arranging them in an artistic style. And this he was able to do with spectacular results. He got quite artistic with the bones, among them the chains and chandelier. This coat of arms represents the Schwarzenberg family who funded Rint's work. But this ossuary is especially enlightening if you're an archaeologist, because here you'll find a cross-section of medieval Bohemian society. Because these bones tell you more than just how many people there are. To a trained eye, they tell you an entire life story. And there are more than 40,000 individuals here, each with their own story to tell. And some of these stories are fairly easy to determine. These are people who were killed in the Hussite Wars and other violent incidents, many of which are discussed in my Prague videos. Other stories, however, are more subtle, and sadly short-lived. This individual here, for example, is a child. And how do I know this? Because bones fuse as we get older. So by seeking out the fuse marks on bones, you can gauge the age of an individual at death. And at Sedlec, we see unfused bones of children and the half-fused bones of adolescents, compared to these mature bones from adults. But what else can we tell from these bones? Well, many of these people suffer from malnutrition. In particular, these small pin-like holes in the eyes are signs of poor diet, especially iron deficiencies. This isn't actually too rare in the medieval era, especially among the lower classes, as it required a balanced diet. Some skulls indicate they've been a bit abused after death. The hole in this skull, for example, was put there post-mortem. We can see instances of some people who cracked their skulls and healed in life, and this seems to be someone who suffered from such a bad headache that somebody drilled a hole into their head to cure it. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't get a good look at that one. That might be complete nonsense on my part, but it's fun to think about, right? But these pinpricks in the skulls could also indicate infection, such as plague. And while at first glance it may seem like the majority of these skulls and bones died prematurely or show some sort of deficiency or ill health, a closer look will show you that, yeah, actually your first look was pretty correct. But this is just a sign of the times. The fact is, it's only recently, and only in a small handful of countries, that the general population can expect to experience old age. There was nothing particularly special about the people of Kutna Hora or how they died, but they still made their death something special. And you might wonder, why was this chapel serving in Bohemia's second largest city? Well, it wasn't. This was just the ossuary for the Cistercian monks. It's not even their main church. The Sedlec Cathedral down the road is much larger. Despite the macabre fascination you might find in the Sedlec ossuary, it was actually this church, St. Barbara's, which represented the center of medieval Kutna Hora. This church took over 600 years to complete. Begun in the 1380s, it was only completed in 1905. Even so, its beautiful, complex Gothic design speaks to the majesty they wanted to portray. The town's first church was actually St. James across the valley. This one was begun in the 1330s and completed in 1420, built with donations from the mint, and this church is actually quite interesting as it has a different mix of styles. In particular, the tower isn't central because they initially planned 2 towers. However, this was abandoned as the ground wouldn't support the second tower. We also see expressions of the various social movements going on within the city. For example, we have a mix of Gothic and Hussite art styles with some Baroque paintings. It's also got the oldest written inscription in Kutna Hora dating to 1356. The town itself is well worth wandering around. It gives you a truly unforgettable view of the Czech countryside. In these hills lay huge mounds of silver which had been mined since the 10th century. However, it was in the 14th century that the town's economy in silver really began to boom, and it became known as Bohemia's treasury. In 1300, King Wenceslas II issued the town a new mining charter, which made it the site of the kingdom's central mint and kicked off the Golden Age. And this lasted for quite a while. All over the town you can see hints of this Golden Age. The walls were erected in 1304 and gradually expanded, and despite a few problems, the town seemed to do no wrong, reaching a peak in the decades following 1471 in particular. During the 15th century, this was Bohemia's second city, behind only Prague itself, and kings set up their residences here. Now, at this point, I could go into the trials and triumphs Kutna Hora experienced, but the fact is, it follows the broad strokes of history I've already outlined in my Prague videos. So, what brought Kutna Hora down from these heights? Well, the same thing that brought Prague to its knees in the 17th century, the 30 Years' War. Kutna Hora became a very valuable target for its silver mines, and the town was absolutely devastated. Of course, after the end of the war there was an attempt at revival, but the mines had mostly run dry and the recovery was limited. Instead, the town found a new lease on life with the rising intelligentsia of Prague, this time as a romantic destination, an idyllic slice of country well suited to provide inspiration for even the strongest creative bloc. And it's easy to see why. Most of these buildings in Kutna Hora date from this period, and the curving streets and rugged landscape with grand churches provide an excellent scene for any artist and any traveler seeking a quiet retreat from the busy capital. This period's focus on artistic endeavors is highlighted by the Jesuit College, designed by Italians in the early Baroque style. It was opened in 1678 but completed in 1750 and perfectly blends into both the town's existing style while also symbolizing the 18th century Enlightenment ideals. Today it acts as the city's gallery. The Sedlec ossuary is the major draw of the town, and every year it welcomes thousands of tourists. However, it's worth remembering that this is but one aspect of a wider town which can give you an excellent view of wider Bohemian history and modern Czech culture. It's a rich and scenic countryside break from the hustle and bustle of Prague with a lot of unique sights to offer. It's a town as unique in their expression of life as they are in their expression of death, and it still remains a place of quiet inspiration. And with that, we finish off Kutna Hora. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Please remember to like it and subscribe to my channel. As usual, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. And until next time, I'm the Archaeologist, and this has been The Travels.